Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Horns Report here on KXAN Plus. I'm Billy Gates. Thank you so much for watching. And we've got a lot of stuff to talk about today. Obviously, the big win over Vanderbilt, 34-31. Game was a little more interesting than it probably should have been last Saturday at DKR. And the men's and women's basketball team, they're starting up their seasons here really soon. And here to keep track of it all, KXAN Sports Director Roger Wallace. And Roger, let's start with football. Obviously, Texas comes back home 42 days since their last home game. They jump out to a huge lead on Vanderbilt, number 9 in the country at that time. Jump out to a huge lead, 34-10. And then the fourth quarter happened. Things started to tighten up. I mean, just generally speaking, Roger, like, what did you think about Texas' performance there against Vanderbilt?
Yeah, 45 incredible minutes, dominating a top 10 team. And then, as you said, they had to hang on, and they gave up what they just couldn't afford to do. That was a relatively quick drive, and then a one-play drive, and then, obviously, that last drive where Vanderbilt overcame a 4th and 19, and they have to recover an onside kick, and then the second onside kick, fortunately for Texas, squibs out of bounds, and Steve Sarkisian breathes a sigh of relief. Longhorns celebrate. But, yeah, I mean, for 3 quarters, they were really good on both sides of the ball. And then not only did Diego Pavia had a lot to say about it, but Texas secondary was hit with some big injuries, and they just looked a little bit gassed against that Vanderbilt, that desperation offense. It's kind of like, why don't you play offense like that the whole game if you're Vanderbilt? Sure, the way they played in the fourth quarter is Texas just couldn't find an answer and couldn't get to Pavia, which they did so often, even at Ethan Burke's sack, which set up the 4th and 14, but then all of a sudden he became Houdini again. Yeah,
and it was one of those things where, I mean, like you said, I mean, the Texas defense kept Diego Pavia in check for most of the game. Like it was a remarkable job what they were doing, keeping Pavia, kind of contained within sort of a framework of a pocket. I mean, he got out a couple of times, but they were able to get him stopped most of the time. They're able to limit his passing there in the first half pretty well as his rushing, and obviously, like, that's his whole game. But yeah, it just seemed like that fourth quarter, one bad thing led to another. They score that first touchdown, and then they have the coverage breakdown, the 76-yard touchdown pass to Eli Stowers, who didn't have a catch until late in the second quarter, which, again, was another great thing that the Texas defense was doing. He gets loose for 7 catches, 146 yards, and 2 touchdowns after that. But then that 4th and 19 conversion, Roger, that fourth quarter, where that set up Vanderbilt's third touchdown, that was just downright inexcusable as far as I'm concerned.
Well, Pavia throws an incompletion or they don't get it, they're going to get into the end zone. All of a sudden, it's 41-24, and much different perception of the game. But he made the play. That's what happened. But it doesn't erase what Texas did for the first 3 quarters. They gave themselves enough of a cushion. And how often have we talked about they haven't been able to get any separation? Well, this time they did get the separation. So if you mix what they did in the fourth quarter throughout the whole game, it was more of a, wow, kind of surprise. It was a high-scoring game. But you take it, you run, you get to your week off, and can't say enough about the way that Texas offense played for 3 quarters. Arch Manning specifically, SEC Offensive Player of the Week, and so they gave themselves enough rope where they didn't end up hanging themselves and right in the hunt at 4-1 in the SEC.
Yeah, we'll get to Arch later in the show. Steve Sarkisian had some things to say about Arch at the press conference on Monday, which was a question that you very intelligently asked, Roger, so good work there. But 4-1 in the SEC now. They've got this bye week coming up, and then they've got a big one in 2 weeks, November 15th against Georgia, between the hedges in Athens, Georgia. Obviously, that's going to be a tough one. Kirby Smart's team, by his own quote, they're tough to kill, right?
Yeah, and yet that is going to be prime time. We just got word this afternoon on Monday that it's going to be a 7:30 local kick, 6:30 Central. So, Sanford Stadium's going to be rocking. Of course, a lot of thought about what happened here last year with the incident, with the pass interference call, and then the overturn and the water bottles
and then the
raining
trash.
down. Now, they played after that in Atlanta, obviously, in the SEC championship game, but still, the the student section wasn't in Atlanta like it's going to be
No.
In Athens on that Saturday night.
No.
If somehow Texas can find a way to beat the number 5 team on the road, then they deserve to be right back in the thick of things. And I think if they play them tough, I don't think it's out of the question that they're still in the conversation, depending on what happens, obviously, with Arkansas and the Texas A&M game.
So how are they going to use this bye week? Well, Steve Sarkisian was asked that during Monday's press conference, and it's a pretty interesting answer. Like you want to spend all your possible time preparing for your next opponent, but in Sarkisian's perspective, he's taken a little bit of a different approach. So here's Steve talking about how they're going to use this bye week.
Before the first bye week, you told us y'all were going to use that for a lot of self-scouting. So I'm curious, do you treat this bye weeks kind of the same, or is there a big difference the second one?
I think to your point, Corey, like we have got to dig deep into who we are right now. We've got to dig into the things that are causing us issues in all 3 phases right now. We got to look at how people are attacking us in all 3 phases right now. And we got to be forward thinkers, right? And what are people going to do when they look at our tape, and how are they going to try to attack us? And we got to make sure that we've got enough, tools in our toolbox to combat that stuff. And so, as much as it is, I want to get a head start on Georgia. We got to look at ourselves first, and we got to make sure that we're buttoned up in all 3 phases, as much as it is getting ready for our future opponents.
Hey, Steve, you mentioned word leakage in the last couple of weeks. When it comes to the defense, what's your concern level with the late scores? And not used to seeing you guys give up 98-yard drives in the fourth quarter. And how much of that is attributed to injuries and Michael Taft not being back there?
Yeah, I think there was a couple things that were disappointing because of the standard that we set defensively. Giving up the 67-yard touchdown pass was extremely disappointing when you have a game really in hand. Giving up a 4th and 18 from their own 2-yard line is disappointing, that we weren't able to get the receiver on the ground and end the game right there. And so those things are uncharacteristic to us around here. And so I think it caught everybody kind of off guard and a little surprised.
So I included another question tacked on to the initial one, just because I thought they were related enough to give it context. But it's just, you have to kind of look at yourself as far as Steve Sarkisian's concerned to really figure out what you need to work on for Georgia. It's an interesting answer.
Well, I think you go back to the last bye week, and there was a lot of teaching and building and development. They're past that now. They got 3 games to go. They got to be ready to play those 3 games. So he mentioned we have to get healthy, and they have to get some rest, and then they've got to get ready for 3 ball games starting with Georgia and figure out, all right, now we've got a sample size of 9 ball games of what we do that they're looking at. So, it's kind of that chess game. All right, what do they see that we do so we can combat what they're going to do because of what they saw what we do? So lately what they're seeing is a much more efficient passing game from the Texas offense, but a little bit, to quote Sark and his staff, a little leakier defense that might be able to, cause some problems for Texas when they go to Athens and even Arkansas and A&M with dynamic running quarterbacks. So I think that's what the thing is. You're self-scouting because you're trying to figure out what the other teams are thinking about you. At the same time, trying to get some rest. Sure, they always want to develop, especially young guys who will get more reps in their practice days this week before they really start honing in on Georgia. But, this is it. Again, they left themselves with little margin for error with either you can look at the Florida loss or the Ohio State loss. But now you got 2. Now, if you don't lose to Florida, not only are you sitting at 1 loss, but you're undefeated in the SEC. That's a whole different conversation about where they are. So, 3 weeks to go. You got to win 2, and maybe you have to win all 3 to get in the college football playoff.
Yeah, and if you win all 3, I mean, you're beating 2 top 5 teams in Georgia and A&M. So, obviously that
you're suddenly one of the favorites.
Then all of a sudden, things kind of get turned on their head a little bit. It's like this the bye just comes at a great time. I mean, for Texas, Michael Taft recovering from thumb surgery. Obviously, he's missed. His leadership is missed, and his athleticism. He's an All-American safety for crying out loud. And then Jelani McDonald, he's in concussion protocol, Steve Sarkisian said today. So, theoretically, he should be fine for the Georgia game, but it is nice to have this Saturday off of the gridiron for the guys to, heal their bodies, because everybody's banged up now, right? It's November, and you play in the Southeastern Conference. Of course, everybody's got bumps and bruises.
Exactly. Everybody's hurting. Now, whether or not that includes injuries, Ryan Wingo with a finger.
Right.
He's not sure what his status will be as far as 100% or not. He said he should be ready to play.
Mm-hmm.
Wide receiver, finger, you kind of do the math.
And
then taking Arch Manning. I mean, he was pretty clean on Saturday, but he's certainly taken a beating over the last 5 weeks. And even though as well as he played, he probably is anxious to get that back out there and do it again. But I imagine everybody needs this break, and Georgia doesn't get it. They've got to play a road game on Saturday, so you think, okay, maybe just a slight advantage in that department for Texas. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do in Athens with a week off, a little bit of momentum, a little bit of offensive momentum. Still, that defense it's funny because they're giving up points now the last 2 weeks, but they're wreaking havoc.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that, well, they're making a lot of plays, but they're giving up a lot of plays.
Yeah. And that's just a weird thing, not just about football, but I mean sports in general. Like you can have all these great numbers. You can have 6 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. You can have all that, but man, if you don't keep teams from scoring, it's one of those things. It's just it's an odd thing to see the numbers bear that out. It's weird.
Well, the perfect example is what we talked about earlier, the Burke play.
Yeah.
Burke with a big sack down to the goal line. You get him 4th and 19. Then Pavia and the Vanderbilt offense makes the play and negates the sack, and they go down and score. But you have to like this pass rush regardless.
Sure.
Because I mean, they lead the nation in sacks now after the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, which is wild to think, because they weren't getting a ton of pass rushing earlier in the season. So,
and they're spreading the wealth.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got a lot of guys that have gotten to the quarterback.
Yeah.
Again, Brad Spence keeps coming. Trey Moore, kind of an old reliable in there. Mm-hmm. And then those guys in the front, they cause enough trouble to allow those edge guys to make plays.
Brad Spence, he's having hit himself. I mean, the past 3-4 games, he's been great. He made a terrific open field tackle. I think it was in the second quarter or something of the Vanderbilt game that I just like I'm a big fan of stuff like that, even though it might look like a small thing, but making open field tackles like that, I think it was on Pavia actually.
That prevents
so
big
good.
plays.
It's so good. It may seem inconsequential to somebody else watching the game, but man, having played football and been in that sort of situation, I mean, not at this level, obviously, but those open field tackles are tough to make, and he made it look easy. It was crazy.
There's a reason offensive coaches like Sark say we got to get it to our playmakers in space. It's much more difficult for a defense to get a guy down in space, especially one-on-one. So
exactly.
To your point, when you can make those plays, those are almost like negative plays, even if it's a plus play because of what could happen with one missed tackle.
Yeah, and if you don't think they're hard to make, ask the Vanderbilt defenders who tried to tackle Ryan Wingo in the first play of the game.
C.J. Hurd had a rough start to that ball game. It looked like they were picking on him.
Yeah, and it worked because Ryan Wingo took the first play from scrimmage, 75 yards for a touchdown. An interesting sort of statistical thing that I saw, he had that catch credited for 75 yards because the ball was on the 25. Yards after catch, he had 80 because it was caught 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Just another little stat thing that I
but it wasn't a backward pass, or those would be rushing yards.
Right, exactly. Just a wild start to the game and then a wild finish to the game. Talking about Arch Manning now, 25 of 33, 328 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's had back-to-back games where he's thrown for more than 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. The first time a Texas quarterback has done that since some guy named Sam Ehlinger did it in 2018. That's pretty good company to have.
The biggest thing to me is the 68% in the last 2 ball games, because that's been the knock.
Yeah.
And that's where he struggled, is the accuracy and just missing receivers or throwing balls where it's just a little bit more difficult. So suddenly, it's a 50-50 ball, but there's no defender. It's just can the receiver make the adjustment? And that has been the drastic difference. When you think about Kentucky, he's 12 of 27 for 132 yards. to the point where he has become such a big weapon for that Texas offense.
And this video didn't restart. I was hoping to have some Arch highlights on there, but it went to Ethan Burke's sack. So anyway.
Yeah, these are going to be all Vanderbilt highlights after this. You might want to get out of that.
Oh, that's what I get for trying to be cute with the video. Anyway, but no, Arch just played a fantastic game. For my money, by far his best game in a Longhorn uniform, given the circumstances, coming off of concussion protocol at that overtime hit against Mississippi State, having that sort of uncertainty. He didn't practice until Wednesday last week, but man, he certainly didn't look like it. He looked like he was dialed in from the start.
And I mentioned the percentage and third downs.
Yeah, okay, third down.
And whether
absolutely.
it's 3rd and 3 or 3rd and 9, if you're completing passes for first downs, that's such a valuable stat for a quarterback. And he had 6 throws that converted third downs. So that's what the offense is all about. Keep the chains moving. And he threw a swing pass to Wingo and he took it to the house. But he threw a good swing pass to Wingo.
Yeah.
We've seen not just Arch, but a lot of quarterbacks. You throw it a little bit behind the guy, you throw it a little bit low, a little bit high, and all of a sudden they get thrown off rhythm and they don't make that same play.
Yep.
So he missed a couple. It was a tough play for Parker Livingston down in the red zone, threw it a little bit behind him. But for the most part, it looks like a different quarterback than we were sitting here watching, especially I think of the UTEP game.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And Sarkisian mentioned that pass during his press conference, saying that it was the right read, it was on time, just a little, just a little offline. But you can't expect the kid to be perfect. At least the coach can't.
Like the Ohio State quarterback, Julian saying, "Holy cow!"
He's completing passes. What is he, like 82%?
Yeah, if Longhorn fans haven't followed Ohio State since that 14-7 game, the freshman is at 80% completion percentage, and he's right there in the conversation when you talk about early November Heisman candidates.
That's like some Drew Brees numbers.
Colt McCoy was, I think, high 70%, but not at 80.
Yeah, goodness gracious. Well, speaking of Arch and his improvement, the offensive line helped him out quite a bit. They made a couple of tweaks with the offensive line, moved Cole Hudson over to guard, moved Connor Robinson back to center. That seemed to sort of unlock the offense a little bit. Sarkisian talked about Arch here during the press conference, so let's hear from Steve here real quick about Arch.
The accuracy component with Arch, what have you seen over the last few weeks that leads to the improvement?
Yeah, I think one feels a little less anxious, feels a little more calm, feels a little more poised. I think also he feels a little more protected. When everybody likes to throw the ball when you're not about to get hit. That feels better. But yet there were moments when he was going to get hit and he delivered beautiful passes. The touchdown to Emmett in the back of the end zone. He knows he's getting ready to get hit and he delivers a beautiful ball to Emmett for a touchdown. But I just think overall confidence. In credit to Arch, he's worked at this. This has not been a smooth sail, easy ride, but he stayed committed to his process and his ability to prepare week in and week out. I think he's trusting it more. I think rapport with the receivers has been helpful. He's getting to secondary reads better than he has. And so all in all, he had the one scramble Saturday where he really didn't even need to scramble on that ball. He had an ability to check the ball down to Trey Wisner, and he wouldn't even have to scramble at that point. So minimizing some of the hits, standing upright, delivering accurate passes, and being efficient on first down, but also being efficient in 3rd and 1 to 6, 3rd and 1 to 7, I think is a way he's learning. Man, that's a little easier way to play than playing 3rd and 12, 3rd and 13 football, where you're having to throw it down the field, and now you're getting all the exotic blitzes, and now it's tougher on the O-line, and now you're taking even more hits and having to maybe force a few throws. There was not a throw Saturday where it felt forced. Even the ball to Parker over the middle, I thought was a good read, good timing, would have been a hell of a catch, but I thought he threw the ball on time to the right people Saturday.
Breaking news, Roger, it's easier to throw the ball when you're protected.
We saw it against Oklahoma, 21 of 27, and same thing. So, but he took a big hit on that Mosley touchdown, and the pressure was coming from the backside, and he knew it was coming, but he stood in there and made the throw. But, it all goes hand in hand, and you mentioned the Hudson move. Now that he's healthy, I don't know if he's 100%.
No.
But it's a group where Sark said maybe not the most physical 5 guys they could put out there, but that kind of shows what it takes for an offensive line to be effective. It's not just about 6'6" and 330. You got to be able to know the protections, move to the protections, pick up blitzers and things like that. So it all goes hand in hand, and everybody loves it when it works, and Arch loves those guys. And Trey Wisner stuck his nose in there.
Oh man, he's doing so much on the blitz pickup,
more than a few times.
And so
good. He said on the radio to us Saturday how much pleasure he gets out of getting in there. He kind of downplays. I just get in there and get in the way. Well, you do a little bit more than that.
He sticks nose. He lays a pretty good hit for his big or little as a guy he is, depending on how you want to put it.
And if you don't appreciate it, go watch some bad blitz protection where running backs are just getting dump trucked.
No, he's doing a nice job. And 18 carries, 75 yards, and a touchdown. He's starting to find his way. That goes back to the offensive line as well. Texas rushed for an even 100 yards against Vanderbilt, held them to 58. So that's another win for the Longhorns. If you're looking to stack up those little wins moving forward, obviously out rushing a team that's committed to the run like Vanderbilt is one of those. So coming up, like we've said, bye week this week before the big Georgia matchup on November 15th. So the Longhorns will have a chance to get healthy, watch a little bit of football this weekend. Before we go, obviously we've been talking about football for most of these shows because it is football season. However, the Longhorns men's and women's basketball programs start their season this week. We taped this on a Monday, and the women's team starts on Monday with their first game of the season against Incarnate Word here at Moody Center. And the men's team, they've got a marquee matchup on Tuesday, the Dick Vitale Invitational against the 6th-ranked Duke Blue Devils. So, obviously, with the women's team, Roger, you know them very well, do some of their radio broadcasts. They've got they've got a roster full of ballers. Obviously, Madison Booker and Rory Harmon are there.
And that's what Vic Schaefer said. And he kind of looks at it as there's a lot of newcomers to this program. But when you start with those two, not only combined 8th year, 5th for Rory Harmon, 3rd for Madison Booker, but the positions they play, that natural leadership role of at times Harmon, the point guard, but Booker can move over there as well. But I'm interested to see. They shouldn't have much trouble with Incarnate Word on Monday. They get Richmond on Friday, which is a pretty good team. Could be a top 25, top 30 team for the Longhorns. So. Yeah, they got a lot of new faces. They went into the portal. Brea Cunningham, I think, is going to be a key cog because Vic likes that big presence down low to help Kyla Oldacre. And then we'll see on the perimeter. I think Jordan Lee's going to have a huge sophomore season. Yeah, I think we saw her emerge a little bit, and just watching her in the scrimmages and the exhibition games. She's playing with a lot of confidence, and she's a very skilled offensive player.
Yeah, I think she could be one of the best pure shooters this Texas program has seen in quite some time. She can fill it up from the perimeter, and that was one of the knocks on Schaefer's team last year, that you didn't have a consistent 3-point shooter, even though he would kind of be like, all right, guys, pump the brakes a little bit on this. But I think Jordan Lee could be that kind of player.
Yeah, and they've got one from Missouri, took a tough injury. Ashton Judd is a shooter. They have a Taya Sidbury from Boston College that can shoot. But this team primarily is going to be in the mold of Vic Schaefer, and that's going to be starting down low, pounding it inside, and then working off there and playing tough defense. And if you're not in the mood to play defense, you'll be watching with him. So that's always the risk when you bring in several Porter players, because they're used to a system in college, not in high school. It's a little different. Moving from high school where you put all your faith in a college coach that recruited you in his system. Yeah. Now you got players coming from different systems. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, ranked 4th in the country. He said there are days when he doesn't know if they're 44th, but he's kind of the eternal pessimist at times.
He is.
Loves his team, but,
every chat with him is an interesting one.
He finds the blemishes real quickly.
He does. That's coach's mindset, though. As far as the men's team go, first-year coach Sean Miller had a couple injuries to some big men early on in training camp. Obviously, they have a tall task ahead of them, taking on Duke in their season opener. It'd be interesting to see how this men's team kind of shakes out. You got Kendall Weaver, the Energizer Bunny. He's back. Jordan Pope's back. Tremont Mark. So, you got a decent core coming back, and then with a bunch of transfers.
I think Sean Miller's interested.
Yeah,
in seeing
seriously, right?
what this team looks like.
Yeah.
He joked last week he's going to wake up tomorrow morning, Tuesday morning, and go, what in the world am I doing playing Duke in Charlotte
Yeah.
to open the season with a
It's
new
a neutral
system?
court, though, Roger. It's
Yes.
neutral.
That's right. And, basically, even the veterans are new guys to the system. You have two Xavier
Yeah.
recruits and portal guys that have come. They're the only ones that know this system anything more than the last several months. So, it's going to be interesting to see what this team looks like now compared to what it looks like in January and moving on. Picked in the 9th in the SEC, and if they finish 9th, that means they're probably at least 500 in conference play.
And they're getting close to the NCAA tournament.
I
if
would
they're
say
there.
ninth gets you in. Not exactly the mark you want to shoot for.
No.
But it is 9th out of 16, and last year at least the best conference in college basketball.
Right, and
I'm setting the bar a little low.
Sure, yeah, a little bit low. Yeah, the men's team last year losing the first 4 to Xavier, and then Chris Del Conte, the AD of Texas, goes and hires Xavier's coach after they release Rodney Terry of his duties last season, which good for Rodney. He got a new gig. He's a West Coast scout for the New Orleans Pelicans now, and you'll be able to see him on ESPN as a college basketball analyst. So good for RT.
It's cool, and I'm sure he's consulted our friend and sometimes my broadcast partner Eddie Orn, who's Craig Way's analyst. He's a scout for the Brooklyn Nets, and so it's a great way to kind of double dip because he's calling college basketball games and he's also watching players with an eye on the NBA, and so cool for Rodney Terry to be able to stay in basketball in a couple of different capacities because all he was for this program was incredible.
He was great.
In a very bad circumstance, and then he did the best he could. And good for Rodney Terry. He bleeds burnt orange, and I'm sure he's happy to be back in the game and still get to live in Austin.
Yep, and we'll always have his favorite phrase: "Live where your feet are."
His feet are going to be all over the place now. He's going to be on the road a lot.
Yeah. All righty. Well, that'll do it for this episode of the Horns Report. You can find us KXAN Plus, obviously, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you watch us. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And for Roger Wallace, I'm Billy Gates, and we'll talk to you again very soon.